What's up, y'all? It's me, Rod. So today I'm gonna do a brief tutorial on Dave Stryker's solo on "For the Love of You" off of this uh, Blue to the Bone record, Blue to the Bone 4. And I dig Dave Stryker. I got hip to him while I was in college, and particularly because he sounded a lot like George Benson. And then I started researching Dave and found that he toured with Stanley Turrentine um, for years. And then the more I dug into his catalog, I discovered that he was very much very much out of the school of George, and a Bensonite, as I term it, George Bensonite. But I like Dave. I really dig his playing. He's very tasteful, and plays with a lot of a lot of good feel. So I'm gonna go through his solo. It's just a one chord solo, but I wanted to just do this because it's a hip solo, and I want to explain how he's extending his lines and making it easily understood or easily digestible, if that makes any sense. How you can digest what he's playing, because in most cases he's playing the same line, he's just playing it up an octave to extend the phrase. And that's a good way to stretch your lines. I've learned over the years, you can play the same thing, you can play it down an octave, play it up an octave, and that way it allows the listener, lets the listener know, number one, that you know what you're doing, or you know where you are, and it's something that they can immediately grab onto. And you know, not everybody, particularly in this day and age, you're gonna be doing shows. For those of you all who do tour or do perform in front of audiences on a regular basis, not everybody is going to be a jazz connoisseur or know what's going on in the jazz world. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. As much as we love the music jazz, like a majority of this, it's no longer the popular music as it was in the 40s or 50s, and particularly, I guess, the 40s or 30s now. But at any rate, you can still make it accessible to people by not necessarily dumbing it down, but just giving it to them in a different form, whether it be using more popular tunes as a vehicle. More, when I say popular tunes, like songs like "For the Love of You," or songs, more commonly played tunes, pop tunes of today, and then recreating them so that people can appreciate the improvisation, as well as appreciate the fact that it's a song that they recognize. So at any rate, I'm gonna go through the solo, and I'll explain the solo. I'll go through it. So let's go through this solo and break it down. I'll break it down slow, and just talk a little bit about what's happening and how you can use some of this stuff for your own playing, particularly if you're not already hip to some of the concepts and the things that he's using in the solo. So for those of you all who don't know, the song for the Love of You starts off like this. You got an F, you have a D major chord with the F sharp in the bass, G major 7. So this is where the solo starts on the A9. Stryker starts it off like this. Nice opening phrase. Let's play that again. Then he goes to he's playing off it's still on the 9, A9, but the way that Dave is approaching this is more like a 2-5, but a 2-5 to the tritone instead of just a 2-5 here. He's playing, which is, you know, when dealing with 2-5s, for those of you all who don't know, it's always commonplace to play off of the tritone, because that's where the colors, particularly on a altered dominant tritone, is so many colors. You know, even if the bass player is playing the 5, the actual 5, listen to that. Versus playing and that still sounds cool, but it's even cooler when you put that tritone. So what Dave is doing is playing off the tritone. Then he's sweeping here. All that's pentatonics and blues bass stuff. Another pentatonic, another tritone run right here. And this is great because he's extending the line by playing the same thing down an octave. So see right there, this line right here. Then he goes. He does the same thing again, extends the line by playing the same riff up an octave. So once again, that's let's take it from this line right here. So I prefer to jump down, hit this way. You may want to try a different fingering, but this is a fingering that works for me. Last time on this line. Here's another tritone. So it is the last line right here. He's bending this note. That's the whole solo, essentially. Easy peasy. The kicker, or the things that I would really caution you or advise you to get out of this solo, is just how he's extending the harmony. He's extending his solo lines by just simply playing them an octave, which is common. Once again, another commonplace thing, and for saxophone players, any improviser. And you know, one way to extend the line is just to play the same line just down an octave or up an octave. It's not really a little secret. It's just something that is commonly done. But I guess most people wouldn't recognize it unless you really study these transcriptions. Like, there are some people out on the internet and some educators that may caution people against transcribing. I'm gonna play a clip from Dave Stryker himself, that I got off a line, off of interview. And look, check this out right here. Check this out.
So I kind of learned. I learned the music like I think it's most people have learned it that are the greats, and that is from listening to the Who Came Before. It's an oral tradition. This is jazz. Everybody, from Louis Armstrong. Maybe one of the first jazz guys. He's listened to King Oliver. Dizzy Gillespie and Miles listened to Louis, but everybody kind of puts their own thing on it. Charlie Christian was one of the first jazz guitar players, and he influenced Wes Montgomery and George Benson, who influenced guys of my generation like Pat Metheny and John Scofield, and so it's just a continuing evolution of the music, but that's how I learned how to play, is listening to records and taking ideas off the record. We call it transcribing, which you would actually note for note take off like a Wes Montgomery or George Benson, Pat Martino, Miles, Coltrane solo off the record. Figure out how they're playing over these chord changes. And hopefully some of that rubs off on your own playing.
So as you can see, even Dave himself said, he didn't go to school. And I'm not saying don't go to school or advise. People learn differently. Some people are more, theory-based players, and other people like myself just are more, I guess, by hearing, because at the end of the day, and not that, I also went to school, but I found myself to grow more just by transcribing. But that's just my opinion. I encourage you to learn all kinds of ways. You have to find out which way you learn the fastest. And I wish I had a teacher when I was in school to encourage me to figure out what ways work best for me in dealing with this music, because not every way works for everybody. But I will tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, all the masters that we studied, most of them did not go to school, and most of them got it from sitting down with records, transcribing their butts off from what they liked, from the artists that they admired, artists that they heard. And that's essentially, that and experience on the bandstand, to me, is like the best educators out there.